Today we're going to take a look at Jack Kramer's Los Serranos South golf course. A very, very long course, but a nice one to play. Take a look at the scorecard here. You can see that the whites are 6,700 yards. That's a lot longer than any whites you're going to find around. That's for sure. I would recommend that if you shoot in the 90s or hundreds or higher, please consider playing from the forward tees. It's much more playable from there, and you'll have a much better time, much better experience. Anyway, coming off the tees here, these bunkers aren't terribly in play. A little bit on the right side. Most people do favor the right. As you come up to the second shot here, avoid the right side if you slice like a lot of us. There's plenty of room on the left, so just favor the left side and avoid going on that hill up there. These bunkers here in the front are further away from the green than they look when you're out in the course, so just bear in mind there is some room in front of the green. And this green is a two-tiered green, the only real two-tiered green on the course, and it's pretty tough putting if you're not in the right spot. If you have a draw in your bag, this is a nice time to use it off the tee here. It's a fairly short par 5, and if you can bring it around the corner a little bit, you'll be in a really good position for your second shot. Otherwise, most people end up on the right over there by the cart path, which is okay, but left is better. As you come down the hole here, it's again pretty wide open, no real trouble, no obstructions, no sand, no nothing. So just bang away, and then on your third shot, you should be able to get on the green here without too much trouble. Although that front bunker, yeah, it gets a little action for sure. Once you get on the green, though, it's very sloped, steeply sloped from back to front. Be aware of that. It doesn't look much when you're there, but it's definitely sloping. Number 3 here, the tree there, it doesn't really come into play if you're using the white or forward tees. So it's pretty much just hit off the tee and slam it down there somewhere. The bunker on the left sometimes comes into play as this guy has demonstrated. But the biggest issue here is getting up this hill. It's uphill to this green. That little tiny bunker does get some action, and unlike most greens here, this one slopes from left to right. Most are back to front, but this one is definitely left to right. Hole number 4 is long for a couple of different reasons. The length itself, 414, is a little long from the whites, but the green itself is way up on a shelf, and it's hard to get to, period. So I've never been on this green in regulation. So plan on maybe finding a good spot for a layup, unless you think you can get there, and someplace on this slope here, and then getting on the green. And it's a fairly benign green, so putting isn't too much of an issue here. It's a tough little hole. This next hole is a brute. It's 427 yards from the whites. We play from the forward tees, which is right there, which makes it much more enjoyable for us. But there's not too much trouble unless you go way right, which sometimes occurs with our slicers. So be careful of that. Otherwise, you just want to get down there, and from the forward tees, you're just having a short iron onto this green. There is a little trouble on the green. There's a low area on the bottom left, which I'll highlight here, and it's sort of just don't put the ball there on the green. You want it someplace else on this green. Hole number 6 is a very, very steep uphill par 3. I would suggest using 2 extra clubs unless you positively can fly the green at 171 yards. If you can do that, then fine, pick your regular club. But otherwise, you're going to need something to bounce it up onto the screen, which is fairly easy for putting. After you finish number 6, you're going to be at the top of the hill at the snack shop and the rest area. And so take a minute to peek out over the scenery here in the valley, and just it's a beautiful course from up here. It's a nice time to take a deep breath and relax with the scenery, and enjoy your day of golf, and just be thankful you're able to do this kind of thing. So it's a great day down here and a great spot to view it from. Well, after enjoying the view, now it's time to get back to work here. Downhill, par 4, interesting hole. Hit away. Watch out for the right side. The ball can definitely roll down into the rough out there, and even further. So that's a tricky shot there. And if you can play this hole without going in a bunker, you've done a nice job. Consider yourself lucky. Getting on in regulation is not always easy because of all those bunkers. Hole number 8 demonstrates one of the biggest differences in the forward tees and the white tees. The forwards are up here, and we play from there. But if you're playing from the whites, just getting over the water can be trouble for us short hitters. Otherwise, it's not too difficult to hole. Actually, from the whites, it's very difficult because getting on in regulation means you've got to have 2 fantastic, amazing shots from the Uh, Forward tees, it's not so bad. Getting on in three is not a problem. In fact, you're usually close enough where those bunkers don't even come into play, and you can get a nice wedge on the green and a chance for a nice par. Hole number nine is a straightforward par three. If you can fly it onto the green, please do so. But if you can't, you're going to need to take at least one extra club because the front slope there catches all the balls that are short and won't allow them to release up onto the green. So take an extra club or two if you can't get it onto the green in the air. Hole 10 is a challenging little hole. They put a marker out here on the fairway so you can hit over that, but you want to go left of that marker, not straight over it. Really, it'll help to go a little bit left, and that'll often leave you with a downhill shot onto this green, which means that pond is in play because of that downhill shot. Then when you get here, you've got a big false front in the front. This is not good if you're on the slope there. You're going to really putt it hard to get it up that hill. Okay, number 11, decent hole, 382 yards. The bunker on the right comes into play fairly often. The ones in the back there, not normally, but if you're a long hitter, they definitely are in trouble. So try to avoid both of those if you can. The next shot is fairly open. It's a little muddy down here sometimes for some reason, don't know why. Um, Guarded by the two bunkers here for the green. It slopes back to front, fairly sleepy in the back of it. In the front of it's not quite so steep, but in the back it is steep. We have a reoccurring theme with this par three. If you can fly the green at 164 yards, then great. But if you cannot, then you need to take an extra club or two to get up that little slope that's in front of the green. Otherwise, it gets hung up and you just can't get there. And those two bunkers surrounding the green are definitely in play. Okay, hole 13 is a shortish par five. Favor the right side off the tee. The trees in the left get to be a little bit of a trouble on your second shot. And this is where the trouble begins, actually. Your second shot can get down into the valley in front of the green. And now you've got to decide how to get up on the green and which club to use with all the elevation change. Pick an extra club for sure because it's pretty steep up there. Once you get to this green, it's fairly large and it slopes to the right, basically. And it's a tough putting one. If you're far away, a three putt's a possibility. Well, hole 14 is about as ordinary as it gets. It's decently long at 389, but there's really no trouble off the tee, and no real trouble off the second shot either. It's just your basic, you get the ball down there and get it on the green and play the hole, get a nice par. It's not a difficult hole, a little long for some of us, but still a nice hole. And this gentleman came in with a nice shot with his orange ball right there in the center of the green. Now, in contrast, hole 15, a little shorter, but actually quite a bit harder. It's very narrow off the tee with a big slope on the left-hand side. You've got to avoid the left. It's just you're not going to get a par if you get down there probably. So favor the right side more or less. The second shot is not too bad. Once you get up in here, it's opened up, and those two bunkers are wide enough to where you can get on the green without really too much trouble. But the tee shot is critical on this particular hole. Okay, coming up to 16, it's not a long par five, but that doesn't mean it's not a troublesome par five. Off the tee, if you're favored the left side, you'd be a little better off than the right. Those trees just kill everything and make it really difficult. So favor the left just a bit. Your second shot, get it down there obviously as far as you can, as always, but it's sort of narrow. It gets to be a little tricky. And then your third shot is, what do you do? Do you lay up because you just can't quite make the green, or do you go for the green and maybe put it in the pond? It's always a tough decision, and I think that pond collects a few balls. Okay, the course is called Jack Kramer's Los Serranos Golf Club, and it's Jack Kramer is a famous tennis player of yonder years, and that pond there is in the shape of a tennis racket. Yep, you betcha. It's a little homage to Jack Kramer. Okay, the par 5, 18 is 536 yards. It's a long hole from the whites. It's long from the forwards. It's long from everything. It's just a long hole. The bunker on the right and the shadows there usually is not too much in the play, but definitely the bunker on the left is certainly in play. And then coming up, you've got a second shot that's going to take you down here just past the cart path, hopefully. And if you're just past the cart path, you have a real problem is you have to decide what to do on your next shot. If you're longer, you might be able to go for this green in 3 in regulation, but if you're shorter, you're going to have to lay up in front of the pond and try to get it on from there. The green is fairly flat. Once you get on there, 2 putts not shouldn't be a problem. Hey, if you enjoy this, please consider subscribing and hitting the like button and adding some comments. And definitely appreciate you watching. And you take care and be safe out there and hit them straight.